Section 6 of Food Values by Dr. Albert Philip Sy. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Sugar and similar foods. Sugar. Cane and beet sugar are chemically and physiologically identical. Some people claim they can tell the difference. Chemists cannot. Sugar is a refined food and therefore lacks growth essentials. It is considered a rich food, its fuel value being 1 1/2 times that of bread. Sugar is all carbohydrate. Molasses is the byproduct of sugar making. It is a carbohydrate food and contains a mixture of cane and invert sugars. It also contains mineral matter and other substances originally present in the cane juice from which it is made. Candy, as shown, is the stick or hard variety and represents the purest kind. It is a rich food, but not much used in the stick form. There are, however, many other forms of candy, and enormous quantities are manufactured and eaten. The art of candy making, together with our national taste for all kinds of sweetmeats, is highly developed. The fuel value of most candies is high, depending on what and how much is mixed with the sugar used in making them. Maple sugar is chemically identical with cane sugar, but as found in the market contains water, mineral matter, and flavoring substances. Maple sugar and syrup owe their popularity and palatability to those flavoring substances obtained from the maple tree. Honey is usually erroneously defined as the nectar secreted by flowers and gathered by bees. The bee does more than to gather it. By means of its long tongue, the nectar is sucked out of the flowers and swallowed into the honey sac of the bee. Here the nectar, which consists of about 30% of sugar and about 70% of water, undergoes chemical changes not well understood. The sugar is changed into invert sugar, and small quantities of gums and volatile substances, some of them originally present in the nectar and others developed by the bee, impart to honey its flavor. The carbohydrates of honey are mainly a mixture of dextrose and levulose, a natural invert sugar. Composition of food materials. Sugar, granulated. Carbohydrates, 100.0. Fuel value, 1,810 calories per pound. Molasses. Water, 25.1. Protein, 2.4. Carbohydrates, 69.8. Ash, 3.2. Fuel value, 1,300 calories per pound. Stick candy. Water, 3.0. Carbohydrates, 96.5. Ash, 0.5. Fuel value, 1,745 calories per pound. Maple sugar. Water, 16.3. Carbohydrates, 82.8. Ash, 0.9. Fuel value, 1,500 calories per pound. Honey. Water, 18.2. Protein, 0.4. Carbohydrates, 81.2. Ash, 0.2. Fuel value, 1,475 calories per pound. Vegetables. Potatoes. Most noticeable about potatoes is their high percentage of water and low food value. They are not a rich food, and for that reason can be, and usually are, eaten in comparatively large quantities. They contain valuable mineral matter and are usually classed as a carbohydrate food. A diet which consists largely of potatoes is one-sided and should be supplemented with protein and fat foods. Potatoes can be grown almost anywhere and have an agreeable taste when prepared in any one of dozens of ways, which accounts for their popularity as a food. Onions, although they have quite an appreciable food value, are eaten usually as a relish and used for flavoring. Because of their odor and flavor, they are believed by many people to possess medicinal properties. Hence the saying, "An onion a day will keep the doctor away." Chemists and dietitians have been unable so far to discover in onions any therapeutic value other than that of vegetables in general as part of a well-balanced diet. Vegetables usually supply valuable mineral matter and vitamins. Parsnips contain nearly as much starch as potatoes, but on account of their flavor, they are not as popular as the latter. Like many other vegetables, parsnips contain valuable mineral matter, especially potassium and phosphates. Celery is eaten as a relish, not as a food. It is often stated that celery is a brain food, but why it should be called such, nobody seems to know. Nothing has been discovered in celery which could be classified as a special brain food, and it probably possesses only the usual vegetable values. Composition of food materials. Parsnip. Water 83.0, protein 1.6, fat 0.5, carbohydrates 13.5, ash 1.4. Fuel value 295 calories per pound. Onion. Water 87.6, protein 1.6, fat 0.3, carbohydrates 9.9, ash 0.6. Fuel value 220 calories per pound. Potato. Water 78.3, protein 2.2, fat 0.1, carbohydrates 18.4, ash 1.0. Fuel value 375 calories per pound. Celery. Water 94.5, protein 1.1, carbohydrates 3.4, ash 1.0. Fuel value 80 calories per pound. Beans and corn. Beans. Of the foods shown in this chart, dry beans are the most important. Cooked and canned, either alone or with pork, tomatoes, etc., they are a popular American ready-to-serve food. Baked beans are an important item in our dietary. They are a mixed food containing considerable carbohydrates, proteins, and mineral matter. They contain more carbohydrates than bread and more than twice as much protein. Meat has less protein than beans, but the latter, although sometimes called the poor man's meat, should never be wholly substituted for meat. The proteins of beans are not dietetically complete and do not have the agreeable flavor of meat proteins. The difficulty in digesting beans, resulting in the gas formation which some people experience, is believed to be due to the peculiar character of the carbohydrates. The composition of peas is almost identical with beans, and most of what has been said about the latter applies to peas also. Beans and peas are rich foods. Fresh beans, as shown in the chart, contain more water and less of the other components than the dry beans. Green string beans are mostly water and resemble the so-called green vegetables. Green corn, or corn on the cob, although 3/4 water, has considerable food value on account of its starch content. It is both a relish and a food, and is classed with the so-called green vegetables. Green or succulent vegetables are valuable because they usually contain necessary mineral matter, vitamins, and supply the purest kind of water for our digestive processes. Composition of food materials. Shelled bean fresh. Water 58.9, protein 9.4, fat 0.6, carbohydrates 29.1, ash 2.0. Fuel value 720 calories per pound. Navy bean dry. Water 12.5, protein 22.5, fat 1.8, carbohydrates 59.6, ash 3.5. Fuel value 1,560 calories per pound. String bean green. Water 89.2, protein 2.3, fat 0.3, carbohydrates 7.4, ash 0.8. Fuel value 190 calories per pound. Corn green, edible portion. Water 75.4, protein 3.1, fat 1.1, carbohydrates 19.7, ash 0.7. Fuel value 460 calories per pound. End of section 6.